Bobbi Bidochka, you are an entrepreneur, a business professional, and a mother of two little creatures. You are the co-founder of Win for Science, which is set up to encourage women to remain in science and academia. You are mentor to several startups. You are a change agent and a sex positive advocate, which you will explain later on what that means. You are fighting for sex-friendly world, one opinion at a time. And you have worked in so many industries. You have worked in corporate, nonprofit, government, art, academia, startup, and venture capital. And today we are here to speak about your book, Sexual Intelligence in Business. Provoke conversation, empower yourself, and enhance your business. Bobbi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan.
Bobbi, before I met you, I have never in my life heard the term sexual intelligence. I'm sure many of my listeners don't know what that is either. I mean, we have heard about emotional intelligence in the past, but is this a new term?
I'd say it's fairly new, so I have not coined that term. Maybe Marty Klein would get credit for that. But yeah, I mean, if you think about the stream of thought of, first it was IQ, right? Intelligence quotient. So people are trying to measure and put a framework around what is intelligence. And then we have emotional intelligence. And so, that came around the 90s, although it's actually the researcher who originally came was from the 1950s. But the book that came out, I think it's Goldman, I can't remember his last name right now, but so yeah, I mean, emotional intelligence is this framework on basically, reading the room and getting your soft skills in place. So it's not just about hard intelligence, there's a lot more to it. And so I've just sort of taken that, and then there's the sexual intelligence, which normally people are talking about that in terms of the bedroom and in sexual relationships. Sort of the same idea, being respectful and consent and communicating with your partner and understanding and empathy and all those really important aspects. But then I'm going even one step further and putting that into the business context and the workplace, because right now in the current situation in this post-Me Too era, we're dealing with this clash of sex and gender and workplace and business. And so I just wanted to, so I took all those three, kind of mashed them up into a framework that could help people to sort of navigate business and the workplace without distinguishing sex and sexual expression and sexuality and love and lust and attraction entirely.
Okay, so from what I understand, sexual intelligence is the way that my partner and I may behave in the bedroom and how to please each other, this and that. But then you are taking that same concept and then saying, okay, what part of our sexuality we can bring to work without getting sued or fired or
yeah. Well,
okay.
that you bring, it's not even much of a choice. Like, everyone's kind of bringing that along anyway, right? Like, we're human beings, we have natural instincts. What we're trying to do now is like pretend like that's not there and kind of repress it, but that's not the best idea. The best idea is to sort of embrace what you have and figure out where to put it and when and how to deal with that. Repression is never a good thing.
Okay, great. Okay, so as I mentioned a minute ago, you are in so many sectors and industries, and you have worked the gamut. You have plenty of experience. Can you tell us what is it that you do today?
Well, today I'm an adventure associate at Tandem Launch, so I help bring in technical entrepreneurs, and every now and again I help them, raise a little venture capital as well. And mentoring the startups, and I mean, we build startups and then we try to spin them out. Imagine Ideation is my side company, and so we move ideas forward through various mediums. So pre-COVID, it was mostly during events and networking and connection, but now we take on projects. I mean, it's purposely vague, so we can kind of do whatever we feel like doing, but it's either we're grant writing or connecting people. So we do biz dev for some people, a little bit of operations help, some recruitment, kind of business operations whatever it is that you need to move your ideas forward, then between me and my business partner and our network, we can pretty much help anybody do anything. And then, of course, the book. So I've been authoring this book for 2 years, and now it's finally out as of last week. So I am a little bit, yes, yay! I'm occupied doing some promo for that, but also I'm formulating in the back of my head the next 2 books, which I will start to write soon.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, in the introduction of your book, you use also a term that I had never heard before, and that's it speaks in part of my ignorance. But what is exactly sex positive?
Sex positive basically means like just you're open to sex, and you're open to topics of sex and talking about sex. It doesn't mean like you want to go have intercourse with everybody. That's not what it means. It just means that you don't. I don't see sex as taboo. I don't see as it bad. It's not a negative thing that we should hide. It's something you should embrace. It's not something we should be secretive about and not talk about. This is something we should be talking out loud about. So any sort of positive connotations that you can think of in comparison to, I mean, sex gets a bad rap sometimes.
Okay, so going back to your book, you say that love, sex, power, and money, everything is interlinked, yet we try so hard to separate them. In the workplace, yes, it's about power and money, but you leave sex and love home. You don't bring it home with you. But in fact, you say that it's the engine that drive everything. So can you elaborate on that?
I mean, sex and love and relationships are really all there really is. When you boil it down, really down, why do we work to make money? What's that money for? I mean, yeah, we want to buy things, but we buy things to do what with? Not to be by ourselves, rolling around in coins of gold, but it's to be, usually people are trying some way to impress or attract somebody to them for some reason. And generally that's about love and sex. At a very biological level, as an organism, we are, our primary function is to exist and to reproduce. And so most of what we do throughout the day and each and every day is, in service to those things. And so love, like money and power are really just a means to an end to love and sex.
Wow. So yeah, we are in Canada. We like to think of ourselves as a industrialized first world country, but here in Canada, as well as in the United States, as well as in many places in Europe, sex is still a big taboo. You don't talk about sex. You are so discreet about it. You keep everything in secret. How come it's still a taboo?
Well, there's actually a debate out there about whether or not sex is really all that taboo, actually. If you take a look at Michel Foucault's position and his followers on that, is that sex is constantly talked about. And depending on, there's who controls knowledge in the world. So right now, if you talk about sex in terms of wellness or education or medical, then this is like a sanctioned area where we are allowed to talk about sex, and we're allowed to dive very deeply into all aspects of sex in research and in medicine. And when you look at TV, movies, all the media, photography, magazines, music, the lyrics, I mean, it's everywhere. So it really is everywhere. It's just this kind of thing where people are pretending like they're not talking about, but actually they are. Everybody is constantly talking about it. So it's kind of this irony where people say it's taboo, but it really isn't. Now, this is a Western concern here. So there are lots of countries that are not part of the US and the West and Europe this is not the case, right? So they are not talking about it, and it really is something that is unknown not just not talked about, but unknown. People aren't educated, they don't have access to resource about it. You know, that's a whole different story. But if in the context of the West, it's really not all that taboo. It's just very odd that people like to say that it is. I don't know, maybe it's something about that scarcity tactic where if I tell you it's open and everything, well, it loses its you know, panache, and it loses its that you know, vibe that you get when something's a bit of a secret. But it's really, I mean, it's everywhere.
Okay, so how do you propose that we should use sexual intelligence in our workplace? Should we flirt with our coworkers or with people underneath or above us, or yeah, how does that work?
Yes. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of mechanics behind, you know, how to do that. So I give a framework in the book in more detail, but I mean, the first thing to do is to be aware of your environment and who you're talking to and where you are, right? And so you definitely have to read your room, and you do have to know the people that you're dealing with. So you just can't like run into the room and start, you know, flirting and you know, talking up sex all the time. You only need to know me for about 5 minutes to figure out like I'm pretty okay with talking about this stuff, and I'm pretty okay with, if you want to compliment me, go ahead. I'm not going to get offended. I'm not going to get creeped out. If you want to flirt, go ahead. If you ask me out, great. If I don't want to date you, I'll just say no and everything's fine. You know, but that's not the case with everybody, right? So you do have to take a moment to figure out who's who first, so that this is like a respect and consent kind of thing. I mean, of course, you want to maintain a level of professionalism, you know, at work and in business, but flirting and you know, the sexual energy that you get from having crushed someone or liking someone or in the honeymoon phase, or even, you know, just having sex, like all of these things produces sexual energy in you that can help you in your business. So you don't necessarily have to do that at your business. You know, if you don't want to flirt with anybody and nobody there is worth flirting with, that's totally fine. You can, you know, you have your mate or your partner, your date, or whatever it is you're doing by yourself. Even you can generate your own sexual energy outside the workplace and just come equipped with that energy that you can, you know, get through the day, get through your projects, and write really great reports. It's an altered state of mind, actually. So if you are familiar with the flow state, so this is something that gets you into an altered state of mind. Some people call it like runner's high. A lot of extreme athletes get into this state where it just, certain things happen in your brain where it shuts off, you know, all those doubting thoughts in your mind, and it allows you to concentrate in ways that can really, when I say 10x, like I mean 10x. Like when you're in this state of mind, you can, they say you can learn a language in 6 weeks instead of 6 months. They use it to train Navy SEALs. And so a lot of people utilize this state, and one of the triggers to get yourself in that state is sexual energy. And so that's why, you know, if you're flirting with someone at work, you can keep it friendly, keep it respectful, but it does help to generate positive energy. There's also research that shows that when people flirt a little bit while negotiating or doing business deal, that can work in your favor. So you don't want to go too far with it, but it's kind of the same thing where you think about people as charming. So you can use those terms kind of interchangeably. Usually it's considered like the man is charming and the woman is flirty, and therefore, you know, flirting is wrong and charming's okay. But because men are doing that and women are doing this, so people tend to sexualize women in a different way than they do men. But if we can sort of change the way that we look at it, change the point of view where we all can be charming, and we can all be, because that's really what, like, that's all the charm is you kind of be a little bit flirty and friendly. You know, flirting is not a promise for sex. It's just someone being friendly.
Yeah, I think what people run into trouble is when let's put the typical scenario of a man in a higher position who wants to sleep with his secretary, you know, so he tries the nice advances. Let's go out for dinner. Let's go for a drink. She says no. And now it becomes like, okay, you are getting fired or you are just
Yeah.
not working in this project. That's the thing that I think is one of the most common roadblocks that we see when we think about sex in business.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that you want to be able to separate, sexual harassment and sexual violence from just a general flirting, and like I might meet my mate at the workplace, and just general human nature sort of happening organically. You definitely, that's a power relation issue. That's not I'm a human and I have feelings issue.
Right.
That's wrong. Anybody in a senior position, trying to manipulate someone in a lower position, or any position for that matter, especially, concerning their job and holding, if you don't do this, you're fired. Like, that's clearly wrong. And these days in the Western society, there's no doubt about that anymore. Like, I don't think there's any foggy area there anymore. That's pretty crystal clear. That's the kind of behavior that we shouldn't be doing. But it's kind of the same thing, when you're out in relationships out in the world, not in business or at work. There's certain things you just don't do. Like, you don't rape people, something you don't do, right? You don't fondle people and grab them when they haven't consented or any, like, so there's lines. Of course there's lines, like everything. But my concern is in this post-Me Too era is that because of, that sexual harassment, sexual violence, horrible stuff that happened, that they just want to like erase everything altogether. Like, the solution to this isn't to change behavior and to educate people. It's like, let's just wipe out sex and love from the workplace, like entirely, it's just never going to happen. So people need to figure out a way to deal with it and to navigate it. And that's what sexual intelligence in business is all about.
Okay, so just to go back to that example, let's say the inverse happened. I'm the boss. I flirt with my secretary. She says yes. We end up having a relationship, and then 2 months later, she's promoted, and she leapfrog everybody else in the business. Now people have a problem with that as well, and
there is a problem with that, because the person who is more superior, even if it's man or woman, doesn't matter, they will be biased. And so there's nothing wrong with meeting each other and he's your boss or she's your boss, but like, you've fallen in love and like, you just, like, it's there. But then you have to do something, like, okay, someone's got to move. If it means that much to you, someone's got to move departments or something. Like, there's stuff to be done.
Right.
You can resolve that in one way or the other. What I don't want is people to miss out on love because of that. So yeah, okay, you'll have some logistics that you need to deal with, but it's worth it in the end, right? So, but no, you can't be like keeping your relationship and then promoting. Yeah, no, that can't happen.
Okay, so what are some second order consequences that we are now facing because of the Me Too movement?
So second order consequences, this is a concept where some type of decision or action has an initial purpose, and then when it's something that maybe you didn't foresee or you didn't think it through or you didn't expect, a secondary occurrence or consequence that turns out kind of bad, right? So obviously the Me Too movement had a purpose. It's to bring to light sexual harassment and sexual violence, and change policy. People need to be arrested, and lawsuits and all that stuff. So, and getting the women's advancement going, or equity for everybody, kind of thing. So that was the initial purpose. I mean, the initial purpose was really just to give a voice to those who experience sexual violence. That's what #MeToo was. With Tatiana Burke way back before it became like a Hollywood thing, and just so that people knew, like, they're not alone. There's a support network for you. But then the second order consequence of all of that is certain policies, and people got scared, right? Now people are getting fired, people are losing jobs. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So now certain things like the Mike Pence rule surfaced, where so he had this rule of if going to a cocktail party where alcohol is served, his wife had to be present. Um, or if you have a meeting with someone, a mixed gendered meeting like male, female, or whatever, either you had to have the door was open, or you have a glass room, or a third party had to be present just to make sure, like in case. If you have to go to a business meeting together, can't take the same taxi. If you're traveling, can't sit beside each other on the airplane because you're spending too much time too close together. That's a bad thing. And I mean, unfortunately, there are cases where there has been something happened on the airplane that someone didn't want, and yet they're stuck with that person. But it just kind of went really extreme. Companies were like, hiring women is like dangerous now because we don't know if that's going to cause problems in the workplace. So it was sort of like, it's supposed to help advancement, and then in some ways it was an impediment. Like it's very easy for men to get mentorship and to build, like it's all about relationships, right? At the end of the day, again. So if I can't go for beers with you and we can't build a bond, well, you're not going to invite me, and I'm not going to meet these other people that might be my next clients, or I'm not going to get that promotion because I'm not bonded with you because we're not spending any time together. So we should still be able to go for dinner without like caring about, is anybody going to think we're dating? Is he going to say something? Is she going to say something? Like, so then people then just don't. But then how else are we going to, it's just not going to happen at the office, like in a very, sterilized, unfun environment. Like you got to bond, break bread.
Wow. Now, let me ask you about you in particular. Is there a moment in time in your many jobs and careers that you had that you became aware of such a thing as this sexual intelligence, and that, it is a thing, and that you learn how to use it, in other words?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I don't know if there was a moment in time. It's just kind of always, as soon as you get working in the professional world, as a woman or someone who's basically not white and male, you start to notice things, inequities, and how different people are treated. And then I'm a naturally friendly and flirty person. So I just know that I'm also confident and I speak my mind. And so I just have a combination, I guess, of qualities that have helped me be able to still be, openly flirty, and I wear my sexuality on my sleeve, like, let's say. You can do sex jokes. You can say sex jokes with me. I'm fine. We can go for dinner. I'm all good with all of that, because if anybody were ever to even try to make the wrong move on me, like, I don't take no shit. So I would just deal with it on the spot. Like, it would never get further than that. And I think that if more women and more people can get confident in who they are, more comfortable, and more respectful, then all of this can still, be existing without, causing too much problems. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans. There's always going to be conflicts, no matter what you do, sex or otherwise. But just over time, I don't know, I guess I just realized that you can still be like that and get ahead. I've never been worried about being the only woman in a boardroom. Never. Like, I don't allow people to talk over me. Like, you just set the tone right away. I've never really let that get in my way. So it's not that stuff doesn't happen. I see it, but when you put a stop to it right away, you get this level of respect. It's kind of like, I don't know if you think about it in a way, usually like a tiger or whatever, some kind of big animal goes for like the smaller animal, right? They don't go eat each other. They like eat what they can get, kind of thing. So if you don't want to show weakness, I guess you could say, because then people might think like, well, I can abuse you. That's not to blame abuse. That's not to blame anybody here. Just as a side note, but it's. I mean, it still happens. I mean, I see it happening still, but you just put a stop to it. And
Right.
also, I started to. So I'd say in the last 5 or 10 years, I started to notice what really happens to the body when you have a crush on someone, or when you have sexual energy, when you're having great sex, whether it's your husband, wife, or your partner, whatever. Something's happening here and then when I found out about flow and I put these two things together, I'm like, oh my God. And this is like, I've been living off of this for like 5 years. I have been feeding off this energy because sometimes people ask me, Bobbi, how do you do it? How do you work this job and you have the kids and the family and the side and the book? And I'm running on 10x here. That's why.
You mentioned the word confidence several times already. Is there a relationship between sexual intelligence and confidence? Can you have sexual intelligence if you are not if you don't have self-confidence?
I think that you when you sort of apply all of the tools, that comes by extension. I feel like I don't think you just wake up and decide today I'm going to be confident. That's something you have to build up to. But when you have tools and when you have a framework, like, okay, I understand now, if I put these pieces together, then I can change. And if I try to look at things differently, like that's why there's a lot of different chapters in this book that seem like, wow, you're really covering like a lot of different things here. But when you link them all together, then you see, oh, okay, I understand now that I know a little bit of a history, and I understand some of the science behind it. And then I understand how society views it and how I can get around that. Well, then it's like it clears the path, right? So people are usually not confident when they don't have enough of information and tools to get there. So once you get the education and you get the understanding, you got some tools to implement, well, then you can start moving towards being more confident.
Wow. And what was the thing that make you want to share this knowledge with other people? I mean, let's say I know a secret about the stock market. I don't want to share it with other people, but you want to share your knowledge with everyone. So what was the thing that led you to make the decision to write this book and you talk openly with as many people as possible?
It really is after the Me Too movement, and I started to see these second order consequences. I'm just seeing people around like suddenly being scared and confused, and I would have one-on-one conversations and everybody's like, yeah, this is bad, it's gone too far, I don't know what to do, like I'm uncomfortable and I feel awkward now, or like men are having some identity issues, like if I'm not this power aggressive breadwinner person, like, well, who am I? How do I fit in with this women's advancement stuff? Like they just, so I'm just having a lot of conversations with people and realizing like a lot of people are feeling like this, but nobody wants to say anything, because if you say anything like that, it's like if you criticize Me Too, then suddenly that makes you like pro sexual harassment, which is obviously not the case. So I'm like, well, I feel like, I mean, it's affecting me too. Like I want to go for beers with most men in the upper decision making, upper decision makers are mostly men right now. And I'm in tech, I'm in industries that are, male dominated. If I can't go for beer, like, no, I'm sorry. This has gone too far. We got to bring this back down to like a normal, feasible, operational, like surely there's a way that we can have our cake and eat it too.
Amazing stuff, Bobbi. Can you tell us one more time the title of the book and where can people follow you?
Sexual Intelligence in Business. So it's on Amazon. I think like 10 different Amazons. Just type it in the search, or you can go to my website, www.sexualintelligence.com, and there's a link right there take you to buy the book. Plus, I mean, on the website, there's lots of, you can find more about the topics. So there's stuff to read there. I'm on, hit me on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all at Bobbi Bidochka. Oh no dots, just at Bobbi Bidochka. Yeah.
Okay, all the links will be in the website in my show notes. Bobbi, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Alan.